right back, but feel free to get started.
Hi everyone, welcome to SIG Node meeting, August 2nd, 2022. So first off, we have Vinay with the in-place pod vertical scaling PR. Vinay.
Yeah, hi, Mrinal. Thanks. I think the status update on this is that last week the I was I had to rebase it after some other changes came in, and when I rebased it on the weekend, like on Friday, I found that the E2E test, resize E2E test failed. At first, I was nervous seeing something broke, and then I realized that the test is doing exactly what it should. What happened was that last Monday they switched from the old COS version to COS 97, and that caused that has C group V2 by default. That caused the test to fail because the test looks for when it does a resize, it goes and looks at the C group values in the pod, and it looks for the specific paths that are C group V1, like a memory limit in bytes that doesn't exist in V2. I adapted the test to work for both V1 and V2. It can now verify the initial config is fine for V2 as well as V1, but we need the implementation for C group V2 support in the core code, which I'm very nervous to make at this point, although it doesn't look so bad. So the risk of doing that change was one aspect to it. The other part is that the scheduling tests coming in so late, they found some issues with one of the issues was that when you resize a pod down, the scheduler, we expect it to go to its queue of pending pods and then reevaluate them to see if there's a fit because one of the pods has shrunk. So that was not happening until the timeout value, and then the scheduler folks gave us a change. They feel it's low risk, so this is a change core code in the scheduling code, not the test. There's a test change as well, which we iterated over the past couple of days and then fixed a bunch of issues. And I think it's working well, but overall, my sentiment is that we're playing cowboy. We're so close to the release for a PR this big. So, but the good thing
You'd
is,
be open to merging just the CRI change then?
Yeah, I think I'm not sure how to separate it out at this point. Do we have the time to do that right now?
I think so. I had reviewed it with Mrinal again this morning, and I think you might have seen my comment there. But if we just made the CRI change in a separate PR, I'd be happy to merge that like immediately because it does make it. I saw Peter from Cryo commented that it would make it easier for them to iterate, and I assume Mike and Rowan would find it easier on the Containerd side. So I want to be able to make some forward progress here, and I feel like we identified what we need on the CRI to do that. And related to that, like I know on the user namespace PR, we were just talking through about the difficulty of staging CRI changes with their usage. So if you were open to having a CRI only change, I'd be more than happy to push that through, and I think it would be low risk and help ease, I guess, us when we felt more confidence.
Yeah, with the same cap, because there was a separate cap for CRI for this very reason, and I closed that cap.
I don't think it matters. I don't think you need a new cap.
Yeah.
I think we have a cap that describes the scope of the feature. I don't even think the CRI change needs to be tied to a feature gate, but I think as a community, we understood we wanted this operation now to be atomic, and the operation needed to be there. So I don't see an issue. I don't know if anyone else really sees an issue.
I think that makes sense, Vinay. And I mean, Harshal also just opened a CRI only change for the evented plague. If you want to see how to just isolate that. it's linked in the next item in the agenda.
I can take a look into it. How about merging this really early in the next release? That's another option to consider. Because I would be more comfortable if it, sits there and, catches flack from all the other changes that are coming in over the course of
Yeah.
the entire release than coming in so late.
I think that makes sense, but it'll be good if we get the CRI changes merged and the
Yeah.
runtimes are updated so we can actually test against it when
Yeah,
we are merging it.
I'd be a big +1 on landing the CRI changes, getting at least one CRI to do a basic implementation, and then merging stuff at about the same kind of time so we can actually have a real test cycle.
Yeah, the current E2E tests were, they're looking at the C group values, which is non-ideal. It should really be looking at the API. It should be looking at the pod status to see that the resize has been affected. But that's not possible until the CRI change comes in.
Yeah, so I guess Vinay, I recognize this is as much a tax on your time as our own appetite. So if you have time to get a CRI only change this afternoon or today, I think no issue moving forward on that, and let's iterate. If you have to do that after code freeze, like let's get a CRI only change first, and then that would ease our implementers to get something we can get in the CI earlier. So truly up to you.
I'll take a look at it. So this is going to be a new PR for the CRI only, which is extracting whatever is currently there. I don't think I have to invent anything new or do any thinking. It's just blind drag drop as far as I can tell.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't even, the kubelet's not even going to call the new iteration.
Yeah.
And we did a similar thing. Well, actually, no, I guess forensic checkpointing, there was a call. Either way, I think this is a lesson that we need to do PRI usage and 2PRs.
Yeah, this is why I had a separate cap, and then at some point I thought, that it just acts. It'll be like a third wheel, just sitting there without having anyone using it, and did it all in one go. And now we realize that that's probably the right thing to have done. Okay, let me take a look. If it's a blind drag and drop, I don't have to do any mental gymnastics for it. I'll see. If we need to get an exception for that, can we get a separate exception?
I think it'd
for
be
the CRI only change, like 2 days, 3 days or something.
I would be open to that. I mean, the risk is super low, right? Because it has no impact. And it helps dependent ecosystem components. So
okay, so what I'll do is that if I can't get it done by afternoon, I think the code freeze is what, at 5 o'clock today, our time, or 9? I don't know.
I thought it was tomorrow.
No,
It's tomorrow
today.
Eastern.
It's today.
Tomorrow.
I think it's like
Yeah.
8 p.m. PST.
Yeah, 8 Pacific, because they go by Central Time, the GMT, right? They midnight there. I don't know. So
Yeah, they
okay.
put a specific time this release.
So okay, if it's 8 p.m. then yeah, I think they have a shot. I do want to be able to do a full build and see that nothing is broken. I broke the test this morning playing cowboy, so I don't want to waste time on that. Okay, so new PR that contains only the CRI changes. Hopefully it's just like a handful of files along with the generated changes that go in, and that's gonna make it a lot easier for me to have to do this invasive C group checking. We can still do it as an option, but I mean it's going to give us data, so it doesn't hurt, but it won't work for non-Linux.
Yep. Okay, well that sounds awesome. And even if we don't land it in the next 12 hours or whatever the time is, or we go for a 3-day exception, it'll be easier for us to coordinate this.
And can we please commit to getting the rest of the big elephant early, as soon as the code opens, as soon as I thaw it? I'd be a lot more comfortable if this, in 126 it goes in on day 1, and then we, slowly find issues throughout the release than coming in like, T-.
So I think I don't know if you saw my comment, but the Cuba code I thought looked generally good. What the problem was, I
Yeah.
didn't have a way of affirmatively knowing it was good. And so like,
Mm.
that was what I was trying to think about how to responsibly stage. Like, I don't expect to be pushing you on like, hey, random questions or random refactors or that type of feedback. I feel pretty good about the general shape for now.
Yeah.
I just don't have a way of knowing if it tests positively. And so I was even trying to think through like if a CRI had implemented the method and then we updated CI, would CI magically appear broken at that moment in time versus like the other direction.
Yeah, I think I can't be sure anymore. As of December, it was good because we had Docker shim and I had implemented Docker shim support, and it was doing the full end-to-end. And but since Docker shim got deprecated and removed, I lost a wheel there.
Okay, well, it sounds like we have a plan for our next step here, and thanks, Vinay, for
Yeah,
responsiveness.
sure. I'll get working on it around lunchtime.
Cool.
Thanks.
Anything else on this topic?
Not from me.
And it looks like it's 6 p.m. PDT. I linked,
6.
yeah, I linked to the release page where they've got the time zone listed too.
Okay. They want to keep things fun. All right.
All right, then next up, I guess, Herschel, you want to talk through the evented plague feedback?
Oh yeah, so thanks Derek. So while sorry, while we are able to see the container lifecycle go fine wherever the runtime is supporting the events, but the way it's run in CI right now is it uses a runtime which doesn't have obviously the evented plague implemented. Under those circumstances, for the reasons that are unknown to you, unknown to me yet, that test particularly fails, and that's the reason I'm splitting this PR into a CRI PR, and it will be followed by the actual implementation when we. So it's a non-blocking stay a test right now. It only runs alpha features, and so the combination is alpha feature enabled for evented plague and a runtime that doesn't have any evented support. It kind of leads to this long waiting of container creating messages, and then in the test failed. So anyway, I have mentioned the link in the doc. The second one, I'm still preparing one which has only CRI changes, and if possible, I'd like that to get merged first.
Okay, that makes sense. So this is basically the same issue that Vinay was running into as well. I had no particularly bad things about the CRI change that was in the existing PR. I don't know. I think Mrinal, you looked at it. I think Peter's looked at it. Mike, did you look at it, or I thought I saw you on the other PR?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm happy to move forward with
I
this.
didn't have any problem with the cry changes. It was just going to be some questionable issues around some additional events we might need for pods. But what they were doing was reasonable. So yeah, I'm fine with doing a cry only just to iterate. We can also do another cry if we need additional stuff in r.next.
Cool. And then I think on the PR, Herschel, was like the gRPC call, when it would time out, we were going to have to read list and then start a watch. As long as I don't see that that would have resulted in any needed update to the container events call, unless we needed some like a token that said start watching since some period. Is there a thought that we might need something like that?
We can use context there, but or if it's going to return the error, then already I added based on your feedback retry mechanism. So what we do now is we retry for this getting the events, and if we fail, we fall back to generic plague. So that's what I'm aiming.
Yeah, I was just trying to think of like in like Kube controllers that talk to the API server, right? They establish they they do a list and then a watch, right? And that made it that you knew all state to that time from the diff that you started watching the watch from. I wasn't sure if we would have potentially had a gap between our list and event call if we didn't, I guess if we didn't combine them. So
Right, for determining possible missed events, right?
yeah. And so the only thought there is like,
Yep.
do we want to update the CRI to be like a list and then events type of operation, or do we have a way of communicating the events from a particular period concept?
So, Derek, that would be a regular, just get a list of all pods and all containers, like the existing CRI call, and then you build that cache and then start listening. So we don't need another one, right? We are not storing the events on the runtime side. This is what I'm saying. We are returning the current
you want to be able to
state.
reconstruct an event is what you're saying. Like if I gave you I did a list at timestamp 1, it's not like you could recreate an event log
Right.
from that timestamp.
Yeah. You start with the current list with all the statuses, and then you start listening for events from then on.
So our window of missed events would be that time period between the initial list and us calling.
Or missed events.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is why we're still going to need that cycle, because we're not using guaranteed eventing.
Yeah, except it was like 10 minutes for that missed event window.
Oh, I thought it was 5. Did we move it?
I don't know.
No,
It was
it's fine.
long. It was long. Okay. All right. Well, then I think that still is okay. It was just a thing we'll have to watch out on. So, okay. I'm fine with the CRI change, Mike. If you can +1 it and maybe Peter or Manal, then just tag away.
We'll do
Cool.
it. Yeah, we'll do.
Yep. I'm just waiting for the CI to see how it goes with the CRI PR, and if there's anything, I'll just update it.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Anything else you want to raise on this, Herschel?
Sorry.
Anything else you want to raise around this particular?
No,
topic?
that's all. Thanks.
Okay. All right, cool. And then next up, user namespaces. Is Rob on here? Rodrigo?
Rodrigo, you're on, right? He's on. Yeah. We can't hear you.
I don't see you.
Hear me now?
Oh, there you
Yeah,
go.
yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Ah, okay. Sorry, I was saying we talking with Mandral on Slack, we filled an exception because we're kind of close to the freeze and we asked for extra days. But yeah, Mandral told me to also to join this call because there were some last minute concern to better discuss here and see where we are at.
Yeah, so maybe I'll go first and then I know Hemant was catching up with us from storage on some stuff and I don't know if that got on the PR, but
Yes.
Jordan had expressed a fear that there wasn't a clear path to supporting phase 2. And what I was trying to do was today without PVs, you know, the remapping is done on the kubelet and there is no need to ensure consistency across many nodes. When we do PVs, I was trying to recall what was the approach we were going to have in phase 2 to ensure that kubelet on node 1 and kubelet on node 2 gave the same mapping for a given pod. So I'd asked that question on there. I think that was Jordan's primary concern. Maybe he chimed in otherwise, but I didn't see anything that captured that. Mernal was thinking maybe we could do it all with kubelet config, but I wasn't sure what was going to guarantee that consistent input output.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that is not in the cap because we haven't decided the kubelet config field names. Like it seemed distant in the future, but the idea is that you will configure which range to use for pods with volumes, and that configuration needs to match in different kubelets. The same as when you're, I don't know, the cloud provider needs to match in different kubelets and things like that.
But the part that I could use some help on there was I thought in the current PR, we make a request for a given incoming pod to allocate a range for that pod.
Yeah.
And there was a whole locking mechanism around that. And the range that got allocated for a given pod, it didn't need to necessarily be deterministic. I guess what I was unsure was what was going to ensure that the range that got allocated for a pod that used 2 PVs was going to be the same range independent of the node it ran on.
Yeah, so basically when you want to allocate a range for a node, for a pod, you receive the pod spec, right? So you can look if the pod has volumes. So if has volumes that is not supported in phase 1, but is on phase 2, we just give the static mapping, but always the same mapping.
So just to play that out then, every pod would be shifted by like a range of 2000 or something. Like it's a common shift.
Yeah, so like the UID space is 32 bits, right? Mm-hmm. So we divide it in ranges of 16 bits. So the first range, for example, is exclusive for the node. So pods and node processes won't overlap in UIDs. The second range can be configuring the kubelet, but in the future, but it will be for pods with volumes, with real volume, with persistent volumes. And the rest of the ranges are used for pods without volumes or with config maps, and so we allocate non-overlapping ranges. So basically at startup, we just read from the config, which is the range that we need for pods with volumes, and we just always answer that if the pod has these volumes. That part should be easy, I think.
Yeah, I think I follow that now. So pods without volumes basically get a
non-overlapping
remapping, non-overlapping range. Pods with volumes would get overlapping ranges. And that's clear. So if I don't know if you got that comment on the PR, I think that would assuage maybe some of Jordan's initial concerns. I don't know, Mernal, do you want to reflect on those concerns?
Yeah, I think that should work easy, Rodrigo. I was even thinking like beyond that, but maybe we can discuss the details. Like, can we add an addition, like keep all the pods, give their own ranges, and have a separate range just for the volumes that is assigned as an additional 16-bit block to each pod?
Yeah. When we implement phase 2, we can do it however we want. Right now, even just being cautious, we are reserving one block just for phase 2 in the future, so there are not pods using those ranges whenever we upgrade. But yeah, we can do it however we want when we add the configuration options for that phase.
So maybe I think it will be easier for Jordan to review if we can like capture that, and maybe Derek, do you think we can open a KEP update saying being more explicit about the options we have for phase 2?
Oh, okay.
We could. I think that's fine. I think a comment also would just be very clarifying. Okay. Like I had missed that nuance. So that part I think is pretty overcomable.
Yeah.
The other part was maybe the nuances that exist with particular volume types or particular CSI drivers. Which could be harder. So I know Hemant posted some feedback on there, but like, did you have a chance to review that specifically on like the Azure CSI drivers? And I think you had an issue with NFS.
Posted during this meeting, so I haven't really reviewed it in detail. What he posted might be an issue for phase 2, but I think there should be a way out, either a way to fix it or a way to disable this feature in combination with host users equals false, or even in the worst case, I think there should not be an issue with ID map mounts, where that is the kernel support for doing ID shifting on mounts. But he also mentioned that someone else explored ID map mounts a while back and found some limitations, but it's not specific about the limitations or if they're real. I think, like, I have also explored ID map mounts, and on first sight, they look just as what we needed, but I don't have background on CSI. So it's just a bind mount. Basically, it's a bind mount using the new mount API, where you shift the IDs. And the ID written on this is the same as, like, if you run as root in the container, as mapped to whatever user in the host, the files written on disk are with ID 0. So it should get rid of all the issues that I can think of. But yeah, there might be some issues to overcome that.
So I think for my part, Rodrigo, is like the implementation looked generally okay, and I saw the feedback on the cleanup of the mapping files, which was great.
Thanks.
I think your comment earlier in here would come like maybe Jordan's fears on, can the feature ever actually achieve beta? And if we don't have a way of achieving beta, then we shouldn't do alpha. I'm not sure if we can get Hemant over that hump, but I want to get us to a spot where we all think beta is achievable, or we might need to think about figuring out a path that says beta for this means pods that don't use volumes can use user namespaces. But I'm trying to think, like, if there's an incremental compromise we can make there, because
Yeah,
I'm
like a
less of an
separate-
expert on the areas that Hemant is raising, but they seem legitimate. So maybe you can take some more time to parse through them with him. That would be good.
Yeah, I think there should be 2 paths forwards possible. One is maybe more involved, and in the very worst case, we need to modify the CSI interface to add some more communication about the mappings the drivers need to implement, and if they don't implement it, then we reject to create the pod with the CSI volume or something like that. And the other path is even more worst case, is I think even if there is no reasonable way to support pods with volumes and user namespaces, I think it's valuable to support stateless pods, and not like a lot of pods in a cluster are stateless.
Yeah, and that I 100% agree with, which is why I was wondering.
So I'm not sure
if we wanted to have
any
the
concerns.
Feature,
yeah.
If we reduce the feature to just that, there's no complication on a path to beta. It's like we support stateless pods with user namespace remapping. That's awesome. The KEP as written, I think, is confusing folks now because they don't feel as confident that we can get the beta status. So we could get 2 feature gates. We could do user namespace remapping stateless pods feature and with stateful feature. You know, we could do those 2. But I didn't know enough to know if that was truly what was needed. I was just like you, Hemant was giving us feedback right before the meeting based on his own review that I just want to make sure we all absorb, because I do agree we shouldn't merge unless we knew we could achieve what the feature aspired to do, I guess.
Yeah, but what I'm not sure I follow is if we know that we want support for stateless pods, even if it's impossible, that seems unlikely to support in a reasonable way stateful pods. Do we need to define if we can or cannot support stateful pods now to merge stateless pod that should
I
be
think if the
completely
feature gate
unchanged.
was named
User namespace.
user
report,
namespace
yeah.
remapping stateless pods, no one could question that there's not a clear path to beta for that feature on your present PR. And it would be much easier to get shared understanding across, SIG storage, SIG node here, and API review. I think it's the stateful thing that is causing questions. I think stateless user namespace remapping pods is very useful. Others can speak up and maybe share the same. But
Yeah, I mean, David poked me with the same thing, and I told him, how does like separate feature gates sound? And then there was like, oh, okay, is it really useful without volumes? And should we really try to do the beta with volumes? And, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think even if it's in the same cap and we can achieve beta with volumes, I think it makes sense to have them as separate feature gates. Like because basically stateless pods is very easy to support, and stateful pods is when things get more complicated. So to gather more feedback, it would be nice if users can enable one thing without the other, and we can collect more feedback.
I agree. I think it makes sense. Yeah, I think it makes sense because we'll find more problems there, more edge cases versus this one. So maybe we just separate the feature gates.
But so should I open a PR to modify the cap, or what is the simplest way forward? Because from my point of view, like it doesn't really matter if beta is with or without volumes, because alpha support will not change because of that. Like what we've written so far, I don't see it changing. So for me, it's the same if we define it now as something with a reduced scope and people will get more understanding, or we change it later. Like
my recommendation right now would be to update the exception based on today's discussion, which is we're going to reduce feature scope to just being stateless pods. And there's a clear understanding on a path to GA on just that capability. And let's iterate on that. And I think that would be fine. And we will defer to, the next turn of the crank on a feature that's specific to stateful pods. The stateless stuff, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, and all, that would keep us, like the cryo runtime has the ability to do remapping on stateless pods as well, right? This just basically allows us to have parity across all runtime providers, right? I'm trying to recall.
Yeah, it works with cryo. Like Rodrigo probably knows more like where things are at with container.
I didn't follow what was the question, Derek?
Well, we find value, at least with my Red Hat on right now, supporting certain classes of applications with user namespace remapping that are stateless. And so there was capability added to the runtime for cryo to allow you to do remapping independent of the kubelet, knowing that you're doing remapping. That's totally useful. And so I don't think that it makes sense that we don't make that value available to the rest of the broader Kubernetes community, because like at Red Hat, we were using it for container builds and a number of other useful scenarios. So functions, a number of things that would be useful with that. So yeah, big +1 on the value thing is all I was going to say. So if you're fine on reducing that, I think you would get past Hemant and Jordan's objections.
Yeah, so great. So the next step for me should be to capture this discussion in a PR in a comment in the code PR, or modify the cap, and also update the exception. What
probably all three, just to get the most clarity.
Okay.
Leave it up to you in the order.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if needed, like I can set up a call with Hemant if we want synchronous review with him tomorrow.
Well, great. I think this was very useful. Any other concern that we're missing, or something that we forgot to talk about?
I don't think so. So thanks for your patience on this, because I know we've talked about
No.
this also for a long time. And I looked at it yesterday with Manon. I was like, oh, I had opened the issue on this. It had 3 digits, 127. It was like from 2016. So
2016, yeah, it's crazy. It's
any
a very
forward progress is good progress in my view on that. So yeah, okay.
yeah. And one more question, just trying to think about potential issues that other people might think of. If we reduce the scope to stateless pods, and would it maybe be a concern for someone that we don't want to tackle stateful pods? There is the difficult problem, or maybe they just reject the moving with that because they seem like a partial feature or something like that. I mean,
I don't feel that way. Do you feel
yeah,
that
no,
way?
I don't see it that way,
No.
either, and I want to work in stateful pods too.
Yeah.
No, I
I
mean, we have
just
enough
see this-
cases, right? Yeah, I mean, we just say, I mean, they are asking for more detail on how it can be implemented with persistent volumes, right? So we are like buying the time to do that by splitting it up.
Yeah. Okay.
And this is useful on its own. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So it shouldn't be a concern.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Awesome. Well, I think that wraps up the agenda for today. I'm having trouble switching back to the tab.
Okay,
Are
there
there
are
any
a
other
couple more
topics
items.
that folks want to raise? Okay. Then Mernal, you can read through it. I can't see the Google Doc tab.
Okay,
right
yeah,
now.
no worries. So the next one is from Jing. Are you on the call? You want to talk through your item while I open it? Resource quota should enforce limits requests on ephemeral storage. Is anyone on to talk through this item?
I'm trying to refresh my own memory on if we made ephemeral storage quotable.
Let me get you a link here.
It's easy to check. So a CPU, memory, ephemeral storage right now, if we look at the pod quota evaluator, it should be tracking it. You can specify requests.ephemeral-storage and limits.ephemeral-storage. So my quick look at this would say that we already support it. Let's see if I can. I guess we can follow up on the issue, Manal.
Yeah, I guess that's okay. Yeah. We can move on to the next one. David, on the C Group's V2G update.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I just chatted a little bit about this during the last SIG Node meeting. I kind of wanted to just give another little update and update you, Derek, on the status here. So yeah, we're working through the SIG Group V2GA same for this release. What we did is we updated a CI kind of a couple weeks ago to SIG Group V2 images, and sorry, Vinay, I know it caused some issues for your ETE test. So sorry about that, but
I have a different question, but please finish. I'll
yeah. Sure. Yeah. So we've updated all the kind of tests in CI to SIG Group V2 images across COS and Ubuntu. So everything is running there, including blocking jobs, are all in SIG Group V2 by default now with system DC group driver enabled. So we have pretty good signal there, and haven't seen any test issues there. And we've also added SIG Group V1 based tests there in CI as well, because there was a concern that once we switch over to SIG Group V2 based images, we still want to support SIG Group V1 and want to continue to have test coverage for folks who are running older OS images. So we have that. So that's going well in terms of test coverage. And then also I've done a little bit of work on kind of customer reach out and like reaching out to folks about their SIG Group V2 kind of deployments and stuff, and got some feedback there. A couple of folks who gave feedback. There was one from Tencent, actually, one of the folks who worked on the memory QoS feature. Their kind of whole company is running on C Group v2, and it's been running for a while, and they've got some pretty positive feedback from them. Additionally, we recently in GKE, we actually released a feature where customers can opt into C Group v2 to kind of test it out and play around with it, and reached out to some of our customers there and got some good feedback from them as well. So got some feedback from customers that it's working as expected. And kind of for GA, we don't have any major kind of code changes or anything like that. Main thing we have planned is kind of some doc updates around how to ensure your OS distro is on C Group v2 and kind of the recommended setup, like specifically enabling systemd C Group driver across both kubelet and your container runtime, and have a blog post and stuff, so people are aware of this. So yeah, just wanted to kind of give an update there. Vinay, you mentioned you had a question.
Yeah, I think you partially answered my question. That was going to be one of my question, whether you still running the CI jobs on V1 as well for ensuring back compat support. That I breathed a sigh of relief when I heard that, because that means I'm assuming that the alpha job, all alpha job also runs on V1 as well as V2. Yes.
So
okay.
I think we have parity with almost all the tests to have one. It's on the container D tab, SIG Node container D. They're running on container D. So yeah, I think we should have C Group v1 job. If not, we can, specifically for alpha, we can add it. But we have it for features and cluster ET, node ET, and so forth. So.
Okay. Yeah, direct. That was the reason I was nervous. If it's running on V1, I'm less nervous now.
Yeah,
but it's your call.
we need to. I felt for a long time we needed to support both V1 and V2 in parallel. Because I guess of the feedback I've received from our users, and I appreciate Google sharing their experiences. Everyone thinks it's going to work until it doesn't with something specific to their workload. And so the one thing I was curious if you'd had feedback on was anything from any monitoring ecosystem users adjacent to Kubernetes that may or may not be tripped up by this.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, we've been in reach outs with some of those as well, like the big kind of monitoring folks, and most of them have updated their agents. I think that is also why I think we really need kind of more communication. I think doc updates, blog posts, etc. will help to ensure, because people do need to update to the kind of more later versions of these agents and so forth, right? Monitoring agents, security agents that may have kind of underlying C Group dependencies. But we have reached out to them too, and most of them have not updated or kind of in progress.
Yeah, I'm personally excited about this. I know everyone else is excited about us. We can start doing new features that are V2 specific, probably.
Yeah, it's the first thing on my to-do list for the in-place update. One ask is it possible to have is there a system API, a standard way to determine if you're on V1 or V2? Currently, I'm checking for under the C Group folder, looking for the controllers file. I don't know if that's the best way to do it.
There is a way. Yeah, we have other ET tests that actually do kind of look into the C Group file system and need to check it. Basically, you can use libcon. I can send you an example, but yeah, there's an import you can make, and it'll check everything for you.
If we had a helper in Kubernetes that tells us, am I on V2, that would be perfect.
Yeah, I think we already have that helper. I can't remember what it was called, but when we added baseline support, there's some is C Group to unified mode or something like that.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. So I was in the process of changing these files. It looks like a handful of files, no feature gate involved. Am I reading this right, or am I missing something with the CRI? I'll send you a PR on Slack. I think we can carry the discussion there. Okay, and in this case, if CI is enabled with C1 already, with C Group V1, then let's hope that once 126 opens up, we can get much of the code in. I do plan to do some carnival barking, if you will, about this feature in the KubeCon, trying to get contributors to help sign on, help drive it to GA. So it'd be nice to have the code in there by the time.
Yeah. Very cool. All right. Well, I think that was the last topic for today, right?
Are we doing a SIG update at KubeCon North America?
I thought Sergey had submitted something.
I wasn't sure
Um,
because Sergey's been out for a while.
Yeah, let me double check. I'm pretty sure we had a discussion on this. Let's see.
Is there a node maintainer track for it? I don't know if it's on the schedule.
I know there's a general maintainer track.
Okay, because I didn't see it on the schedule.
Yeah, so Sergey, even though he's on parental leave, he reached out on the 15th of June, and he did submit something on June 22nd. So
Sweet.
yeah. Awesome. Anything else? All right. Thanks so much. This was a good meeting. Bye, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.